Hello there everyone, and welcome back to my series. I've had a lot happen in the last few months that have caused too many delays to this project. I won't bore anyone here with the details, cause life can just be too unpredictable, and there are individuals with greater issues and hardships than my piddly shit. But my reason for even saying this is because again, I want to thank my growing fan base and those who have stuck by. It really means a lot to me. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get this anticipated show up and running.
Bioorganic weapons are a global threat. Start working with the rest of the world about the Raccoon City incident. Questioning my desire to reveal I'm going to tell them everything. I've always valued your friendship, Leon.
Stay right where you are. Mr. President!
Resident Evil 6.
Capcom, still shooting gift horses in the mouth.
Could you be a little more specific next time on what you're referring to there, Darty?
I see that Leon is still rocking that 90s haircut.
So Dartigan is against familiar character designs. With this thought process, you probably have no objections to ridiculous character redesigns. Like this one.
It's at this point that I started to realize that all Resident Evil games are designed by a checklist of what was in past Resident Evil games. Zombie looking over its shoulder after eating someone. Check.
I call bullshit on your little claim here. You see, this is a problem among many others that I have with these videos. You claim that you started to realize familiar tropes seen in past Resident Evil games with this game, and yet you went with the classic zombie looking over the shoulder scene which hasn't been seen nearly enough times as you're suggesting. It's definitely here in this game with President Benford, but it originated in Resident Evil, it was seen again in Resident Evil 2, then in the remakes of those two classics, and we even got a small variation of it in Resident Evil 5.
Stay right where you are. Mr. President!
I know he's the president and all, but shouldn't Leon be experienced enough by now with zombies to know that this won't work? Also, is this the same president that was the father of Ashley in Resident Evil 4? Because that's got to be awkward if so, since she clearly wanted to bang Leon at the end of that game.
President Adam Benford is a good friend of Leon. Experience has nothing to do with his reluctance, since in a few moments he'll be forced to do what he has to in order to save Helena. And no, you'd think the surname Benford would clue you in.
It's all my fault. I did this.
What are you talking about?
Helena plays the pronoun game by refusing to clarify how she's responsible for the president turning into a zombie. This is probably the most important thing imaginable that you wouldn't want to be vague or cryptic about.
This is what happens when you copy another channel's format play by play and make next to no revisions to it. You make the same dumb-ass mistakes your idols do. How the hell is Helena playing the pronoun game when she literally says,
It's all my fault. I did this.
What are you talking about?
Besides, if you had let the scene play out instead of cutting out the critical details, Helena very clearly tells Leon that if he comes with her to Tall Oaks Cathedral, then he will have a lead on who's ultimately responsible.
You two just focus on getting the hell out of there. The virus has already spread 3 miles past the campus perimeter and it's not slowing down. You need to hurry.
Not before we check out Tall Oaks Cathedral. Agent Kennedy's got a lead that might tell us who's responsible for this.
Leon, is that true?
Yeah, I think I might have something.
Roger that. I'll map out the safest access route. Keep your radio on.
I got a lead?
You will if you come with me.
this poorly written criticism is worth extra.
Tolok's Cathedral. I'll explain everything there, Agent Kennedy.
Why though? Why can't you explain it here? This is a perfectly good place and time to explain something. This game just started and already its reasoning is so thin it can't even hold up to basic scrutiny.
You guys are going to be exercising those critical thinking skills throughout this video, just so you know. The last sin was poorly written, and here's yet another. First off, they're in a university campus where the President of the United States was set to deliver a speech, and there is a zombie outbreak. If the obvious doesn't scream at you like Sindel's Banshee screams, then allow me to come to plain words. This is not a fucking good place and time to explain shit. Getting to safety first, since there are hundreds of zombies and potentially thousands more, is priority 0 here. Thanks for the heads up on how you'll possibly react during a zombie apocalypse. And second, the reasoning is not thin at all. You're just not paying closer attention to what's going on, which is actually per course of these Everything Wrong With videos. But I'm about to prove just how ridiculous this sin is. Helena's priority is Deborah, and it's made clear before she's found towards the end of Mission 2 in Leon and Helena's campaign.
Okay, enough with the mystery. What the hell is going on here?
Let's just get her out of here. And then I'll tell you everything. I promise.
As you can see, Helena wants to rescue her and get her out of harm's way. The cathedral also has dump truck loads of evidence that prove who the real culprit of this act of terrorism is. This includes the biggest evidence of all, Deborah herself, who could have testified. Helena wanted Leon to see all of this with his own eyes, hence why she's not bothering with words. I'm quite astounded, and yet shouldn't be, over this less than mediocre attempt at criticism.
These two use the same ringtone on their cell phones.
You just don't know how things work in real life, do you? How many times have you heard this ringtone? Now, how about this one? And the former is a default ringtone for many.
God help us. Alright, I'll submit the report.
I'm pretty sure the president turning into a zombie and being killed by a Secret Service agent warrants a bigger response than an office worker submitting a report. That's some DEFCON 1 shit right there.
It will warrant a bigger response. But you gotta start somewhere, and I can't think of a better way to start than this. Besides, it's a given as well that the report Hunnigan submits will contain key information that will be vital to an investigation, such as who first confirmed the president was killed, who actually killed him, where, when, and etc.
The virus has already spread 3 miles past the campus perimeter and it's not slowing down.
Virus outbreaks can be tracked like storm fronts.
No, that's not how infections are tracked. They use the many reports of infection expanding from the starting point and then get an estimate of the speed based on the data from the sheer number of reports. Even before 2020, when shit really hit the fan with COVID-19, these similar types of measurements used to track infections could be applied to other diseases. Here's an article on HIV.
So what's so special about this church? You have some sins to confess?
Oh, you don't know the half of it yet, Leon.
Well, most of your sins about this game are ridiculous, but hey, that's my job.
Don't shoot!
Anyone who starts coughing in a zombie story should be administered an immediate double tap to the head.
Leon isn't that type of person. Have you not paid attention to Leon's characterization throughout the series?
Really? That's two people who are clearly infected and about to turn, and Leon still refuses to see the forest for the trees.
Coming from you, the irony is so thick you can choke on it.
No one leaves their spare key in the sun visor, especially a police cruiser.
But the cops who were in this police cruiser clearly did, since Leon finds it in the visor. My man, you have the liberty to write these sins however the fuck you want. Capcom can do the same with their stories, no matter how implausible it seems to you.
The fuck? It was on the roof. Why spin the wheel like you're avoiding something on the road and flip the car?
Why spin the wheel? The sudden twist could have thrown the zombie off the roof of the police cruiser. Like, duh. And I'm pretty sure that Leon didn't intend to flip the car and risk killing himself and Helena.
Police car explodes as soon as it flips over, and yet neither Leon or Helena, who are still inside, die.
That's pretty typical for someone who doesn't pay as close attention as you fool your audience to believe so. Leon and Helena survive because it was the front engine that exploded, and the explosion was out of their reach.
Leon is a dick to people in dark rooms with his flashlight.
You're overlooking something as usual, so let me explain. From the character's perspective, these sewers and tunnels have virtually no light, and it's possible that Leon can barely see without it. While turning it on within close proximity may seem unnecessary, Leon could be visually checking on his partner given that drop into the sewers. It's steep enough for anyone to easily bust their ass from what I could see, which could explain why we see Leon holding on to Helena at first.
What's the matter? Not a fan of sewers?
No one is, which makes me wonder why it keeps popping up in video games.
It pops up in video games because they make excellent environments, especially when it comes to horror games. Just think about it. A place with almost no light, isn't very spacious, full of shit, and shit that wants to kill you. The setting is perfect, and it's why we've seen a sewer level in nearly every Resident Evil game.
Let's just get to the cathedral, and then I'll tell you everything.
Or you could just tell him right now and save the trip.
As I explained before, the cathedral has mountains of evidence that Leon can use against the unknown culprit. Yes, Helena can outright say some of these things, but mere words realistically wouldn't be enough to prove what she reveals.
Bioorganic weapons. I'm going to tell them everything.
Helena triggers Leon's flashback syndrome by uttering the same sentence the president used. Flashback syndrome is a debilitating disease. Someone really needs to start a charity.
And someone should have really intervened while you were making these videos. Because although yes, this is a flashback that was triggered using a sentence said by someone else, this scene provides more information and insight than you realize. The president's planned speech is what causes Simmons to stage his attacks on Tall Oaks to silence him. And for further and deeper analysis, which is one reason this game pleasantly surprised me when I thought I would hate it, this adds more layers to Leon's opening scene in his campaign where he's forced to kill Adam. Because this flashback shows strong, unshaken friendship between the two, adding an extra measure of heartbreak and guilt to Leon in the opening.
Tell them everything. Everything we know about the Raccoon City incident.
The events of Raccoon City happened 15 years ago in the game's timeline, and only now is the US revealing what happened? Bioterrorist attacks are so common in this world that there is an international task force just to fight them. How could you cover up a zombie outbreak and the nuclear bombing of a US city for that long?
What the flying f*** are you on, man? Raccoon City's destruction has never been covered up, given the constant references to it since Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. What Adam is referring to is the United States government's involvement with the outbreak and subsequent destruction of the city. Also, the bombing that destroyed Raccoon City was thermobaric, not nuclear.
In order to show you just how heavily this weighs on my conscience, I'm going to get up and stare out this window while I talk about it, even though I wasn't president during the Raccoon City incident and bear no responsibility.
That's pretty telling given how irresponsible you are with these videos. At least President Benford was trying to do something right with his position.
Bioorganic weapons are a global threat, and we are partly to blame.
How is the US in any way to blame? Last time I checked, that was all Umbrella. But then again, this is Resident Evil and it might have been retconned a couple games ago and I just haven't kept up. And neither do I care to.
Then why the hell should we trust your ability to sin this game? No, seriously, to anyone who defends these types of videos, and if you've seen the Birdman's video on CinemaSins' Everything Wrong with Captain Marvel, where he brings up similar points that I'm about to dive into, you the audience just heard Dartigan say,
but then again, this is Resident Evil and it might have been retconned a couple games ago and I just haven't kept up. And neither do I care to.
If the content creator attempting to criticize a game he supposedly played doesn't care about what's going on with the game's plot to at least make factual nitpicks about the said game, then why should we the audience believe you know what you're talking about, or believe practically anything you have to say. But whatever, protecting your integrity is clearly beneath you because there's this gem of a line from the infamous and endlessly referenced Devil May Cry 4 video.
I only sinned this game because Devil May Cry 5 was announced and I realized I knew nothing about Nero except that he was Virgil's son.
It's all about long videos, lots of views, and ultimately money. Good thing integrity is something I hold dear. With that said, 50 sins.
Any flashback that ends with a zoom out from the character's eye gets a sin.
Any narrator that doesn't even try to explain one of their cryptic criticisms gets a sin.
All this scene does is make me want to replay Resident Evil 2.
If only that meant you'd stop this video here and quit wasting our fucking time.
Defending a house from an overwhelming amount of zombies who are getting in through the windows. Check.
This sin is honestly pointless. I get that you're trying to say that Resident Evil 4 had the best sequence of the hold the fort trope, but this one in 6 seriously adds to what we saw in 4. 4's sequence ends after you fight from the second floor of the cabin, but 6 still has more after you defend the second floor, and if you're not prepared, it can offer a difficult and nerve-wracking experience with those whoppers and bloodshots.
Give me your gun! Yeah, you idiots can fight it out if you want!
There will always be at least one asshole survivor in any group during a zombie story.
Oh, is that a fact? Who was the asshole survivor in Resident Evil Remake then?
Asshole survivor gets himself killed by way of his own assholishness. Didn't see that one coming.
A common trope associated with the archetype. However, this scene also serves as an introduction to a more scary and formidable opponent, the Bloodshot.
Wait, so you could close the window shutters this entire time? Why the hell did you make Leon and everyone else fight off a wave of zombies that were climbing in through the windows then?
I don't know why I still act surprised when you ask some of the most ridiculous questions related to video games ever, considering the videos I've already done. No, the window shutters could not be closed the entire time. The guy who was repairing the shutters was on the second floor while this was happening and was able to fix them on the first floor by the time Leon and the other survivors fought off the undead assault.
Good news is, I got some folks coming for me in a bus. Any minute now. If we can make it on board, it's a straight shot to Tall Oaks Cathedral. People are evacuating there.
As it turns out, the cathedral where Leon and Helena were headed is also where this group of survivors is headed because it's the evacuation point.
So is that it? Is it a sin for you because it's a coincidence? It helps to be specific.
In this day and age, I'm pretty certain no business or home is still using door bars for security.
This listing on Amazon suggests otherwise. What fucking world do you live in? Middle Earth?
Oh yeah, here comes Kool-Aid, here comes Kool-Aid, I'm gonna...
Alright, you win this one.
How does a zombie this big sneak up to the front of a school bus full of on-edge survivors?
Jeez man, you don't even sin these scenes properly. If you take a look at the scene while the survivors are boarding the bus, you'll notice that Mr. Kool-Aid Zombie isn't visible anywhere, and about, 2 seconds later, he's suddenly there. That's the real sin, and you couldn't even get that.
90% of the population in Tall Oaks has been infected with the virus.
How do you know that? This outbreak just started not too long ago. Did you do a phone survey and just put down everyone that didn't pick up as infected?
Refer to my explanation from right before here.
We also received word that an organization named Neo Umbrella just claimed responsibility for the attack.
Normally when a company or group renames itself to get away from some terrible stigma associated with the old name, they choose something completely different. Sticking Neo on the front of Umbrella doesn't really change much. I don't think that's going to help attract much investment.
You cannot be serious. Just listen to yourself, man. Do you seriously think that an organization that just publicly claimed responsibility for a terrorist attack gives any fucks about who they attract for investment opportunities? I would think calling themselves Neo Umbrella is a giant indication that they don't give a shit. This sin is so stupid, it's worth extra.
I need to know what's in that cathedral.
You didn't even know about the cathedral until Leon told you about it, and even he doesn't know what's in it or why it's important. So why has this suddenly become the most important thing in the world to you?
Okay, no. I'm not torturing myself alone for this one. Maybe I should have stayed in the Matrix as opposed to taking on this job.
On that,
And did my sensors deceive me? Or did I detect a mention of the Matrix once again? The Matrix Resurrections was a disappointment, but the franchise as a whole is still a source of enjoyment for myself.
Oh, you did, SC. See, I remember our deal, and normally you wouldn't be showing up until later in one of these installments, but I'm afraid I need your help here sooner than later. The last installment on Devil May Cry 5 pushed the limit further than we thought it could, and hell, we even got a warning and you had to provide some repairs. But this installment is really gonna push that envelope, so we need all hands on deck, SC.
Well, Omega, that certainly isn't like you. Baiting me exploiting the weakness? The situation must have called for desperate measures.
Ooh, SC, you have no idea. Watch closely. Let me play it again.
I need to know what's in that cathedral.
You didn't even know about the cathedral until Leon told you about it, and even he doesn't know what's in it or why it's important. So why has this suddenly become the most important thing in the world to you?
I'm quite speechless.
See what I mean? Anyway, let me rip into this sin. Darty, it was Helena who told Hunnigan about the cathedral, and Hunnigan is rightfully asking questions considering the president was killed in a terrorist attack, and the said terrorist attack was a biohazard attack that results in the deaths of thousands. If you somehow don't see how Hunnigan can consider this to be the most important thing in the world from the moment it happened up until now, then you really shouldn't be doing these videos attempting to criticize anything. Especially since Leon said that he had a lead on who was responsible after Helena coaxed him into that. This is just another utterly ridiculous sin that's rightfully worth extra.
Wearing a gold ring plus a bolo tie means you're evil. If this guy is wearing cowboy boots with spurs on them, he'll have the full American villain wardrobe set.
So according to Dartigan, part of the American villain wardrobe includes cowboy boots with spurs on them.
Explosion.
There are of course endless examples I can use to easily prove this farce wrong, but to stick to one franchise, and I'm willing to go out on a limb here, but did we ever see Albert Wesker with cowboy boots?
In the previous scene, this bus ran over a zombie several times the height and weight of this one, and the bus didn't lose control. And why even run it over in the first place? You could have just driven around it.
While it is a great relief for my circuits that this sin isn't as ludicrous as the previous 3 sins, you pointing out the human driving the vehicle is a character mistake, not an actual sin. I must also point out the poor weather condition that you did not notice, which is the rain that is present here and did not occur during Leon Scott Kennedy's and Helena Harper's escape through Tall Oaks. Driving at a high speed also did not assist the situation.
What? They weren't even on the road anymore, and this 18-wheeler comes out of nowhere just to knock them off a cliff? Hell, at least in Resident Evil 2 there was build-up to the big rig crashing into Leon's ride.
Except that there is dialogue that you can use to justify this 18-wheeler appearing out of nowhere. It's when the gun shop owner said this.
Nice work down there. Good news is, I got some folks coming for me in a bus. Any minute now. If we can make it on board, it's a straight shot to Tall Oaks Cathedral. People are evacuating there. Heard it on the radio. But that's a big if. It's a shitstorm out there. We ain't waiting for any stragglers. Heard it on the radio. Heard it on the radio.
If school buses were this explosive, no one would let their kids go to school.
What the hell were you smoking when you wrote this shit? What is it about this situation, driving fast in poor weather conditions in a dangerous area, have anything to do with kids going to school besides a fucking cheese bus? The f***?
Zombie Dog runs away with a key in its mouth because how else are you going to drag this game out into 20 hours unless you make the player do stupid stuff like chase after keys?
Dartigan points out what's happening on the screen, cliché. Oh, and before anyone tries to defend what Dartigan is talking about, don't even think about it. Do you not spend time in any Resident Evil game looking for a key that without prior knowledge, you have no idea where the hell it is? This is just a variation of that.
Are you... Sorry, guys. We're not rescue workers.
But if we had been, you would be kind of screwed since you didn't want to open the door for us.
Unintelligent specimen. It would be exceptionally extraordinary if you could imagine the thought process of the humans in this space of worship. According to my database, which contains many hours of films, programs on television, and video games that Omega has come across, the humans in this space of worship are not capable of being absolutely certain that Leon Scott Kennedy and Helena Harper are not secretly or recently infected, for example. Especially since if you take time to examine these humans after access into the space of worship, as you can see, many of these humans lack firearms, and I calculate an 82% probability that they will not be able to preserve their lives in face of the odds.
You want to tell me what's down there?
It's better if I show you.
Oh, screw you. Leon is a grown man. He can understand stuff without a visual aid.
You're not getting it. Helena wants Leon to see it with his own eyes because she feels that just by telling him, he may not believe her.
Why can't you fill me in yet?
Because you probably will believe me. That's why I want to show you. And when I do, you'll have all the answers and proof you need.
I'm far more confident that showing Leon indisputable evidence that he can see will firmly squash any doubt.
Asking me?
Well, yeah, who else would she ask? You've been through this sort of thing twice before. That makes you the resident expert.
Leon deserves more credit than what you're giving him here. See, most likely, the been through this twice comment is you likely referring to Resident Evil 2 and 4 as his experience, but he's been through way more than just those two games. Besides, despite Leon's extensive encounter with bioorganic weapons, throughout 6, he encounters monsters that have never been seen before, courtesy of the C-Virus.
Guessing that's what unleashed this hell.
If this thing is what started the infection in Tall Oaks, how did it infect people miles away? This thing was locked under the cathedral until Leon let it out.
That's because this wasn't the one. I'll admit, I think the way you unlock files in this game is pretty stupid, and it's made worse by having additional details missing, but this file on this particular BOW can be viewed on the re.net website, and of course can be seen elsewhere. Regardless, as you can see, there were more than one of these things deployed, which explains quite a few things, like how the virus spread so fast.
A VHS tape and a VHS player in 2013? That's the most unbelievable thing in this game so far.
I cannot believe what I just heard. So a VHS tape and VHS player are unbelievable to you despite the fact that they do exist and are simply not common or barely used at all in today's age? In a game about flesh-eating zombies?
This isn't an Ada Wong sex tape, and it should be, judging by the title.
I don't care to know how many porn videos you've seen with Happy Birthday in the title. That's your business. But the title of this tape is pretty much the content of what you see in the video, except that it's Carla emerging out of the cocoon after being experimented on to look just like Ada Wong.
On second thought, maybe I can call this an Ada Wong sex tape.
This is quite astounding. Dartigan cannot even perform sin reductions correctly. Observe this scene.
Is this what you wanted to show me?
As you can see, there is no human intercourse present here.
Also, VHS tapes do not display video in 1080p widescreen.
But you're talking about a series that has frequently shown technology more advanced than ours. Considering this was set up by Carla, I can easily imagine her having access to even editing technology better than what we have today.
Camera glitches can be used to create dramatic tension in these kinds of scenes, but you can't glitch a camera into a new viewing angle like that. That requires two different cameras in different places or a zoom out.
Refer to the previous sin.
You know, I get why this game has so many doors that are opened by pulling two switches at the same time, but I can't help but think about how annoying that would be to everyone who works here and doesn't have a partner with them 24/7.
If you understand the need for the additional security and measures in a secret laboratory where illegal and inhumane experimentation takes place, why the f*** are you still sinning this? Morality is obviously in the gutter here. You really think the family gives a damn about it being annoying to anyone?
Enough with the mystery. What the hell is going on here?
Let's just get her out of here. And then I'll tell you everything.
I would not judge Leon harshly if he just shot her right now. Anyone who keeps moving the goalpost like this when you're wanted for killing the president deserves whatever's coming to them.
My man, you trippin'. First, the moving the goalpost comment is pretty hypocritical coming from you, since you combine actual criticism with nonsensical nitpicks with these videos. Second, this is a pretty dickish thing to say. Helena has her flaws, but her love for her family is very heartwarming, as is her efforts to try and keep Deborah safe. Leon's frustration given all they've had to endure, including witnessing survivors dying to have the goalpost getting moved again, is understandable, but you not having a problem with him shooting Helena is out of whack. You're getting 10 sins just on principle.
Ada, what the hell is going on here?
It's complicated.
Oh, for fuck's sake, someone just answer the man. The story isn't that complex.
Then you clearly don't know what you're talking about. There are 7 playable characters in the main campaign, the most of any mainline Resident Evil game to date. I'm sure to expect an ass pull from you, but I wouldn't imagine that having that many protagonists comes with a simple and linear story. With that said, I'll also use Ada's line, which doubles as a response to Leon's question and to your lazy criticism.
Ada, what the hell is going on here?
It's complicated. But this isn't the time or the place.
Underground dungeons have the best timing for creating dramatic escape scenes. This one starts collapsing for no reason whatsoever.
Collapsing for no reason, he says. This document helps to support the idea that the family is responsible for this, as this implies to be happening before Leon and Helena arrive. In fact, during gameplay as Helena is carrying Deborah on her back, you can visibly see debris falling.
This boss spends half the fight touching herself and posing like a stripper. Who knew that a mutagenic virus could turn you into a porn star?
According to Omega's gameplay records that I could witness thanks to my advanced capabilities, no. Deborah Harper does not spend half this fight touching herself and posing as a stripper. In fact, there are these other videos that Omega has stored of women on these metallic poles, often completely in the nude, and it's lacking in this.
Also, Capcom chickens out of showing nudity in their game by giving this very naked lady total Barbie doll anatomy.
As if that's something new. I think it's pretty obvious you haven't played a lot of games in the series. And no, Jill's scene in Resident Evil 5 is still up for debate.
Falling slow motion death cliché.
Dartigan points out what's happening on the screen, cliché.
Didn't know what else to do. So I helped him. I helped Simmons breach the president's security.
That was the big secret you had to wait until you got to the cathedral to tell Leon about? You could have told him this a lot sooner, especially considering Simmons is the national security advisor and is the one giving orders. Yeah, you wanted to rescue your sister, but Leon would have likely helped you do that anyway. And how did you even know you could trust Leon in the first place? You two didn't even know each other before this.
I really hope that it's not just me who sees these Godzilla-sized contradictions. First off, Dartigan answers his own question, cliché.
Yeah, you wanted to rescue your sister. Yeah, you wanted to rescue your sister. Yeah, you wanted to rescue your sister.
Second, Helena states very clearly during gameplay that she doesn't know if Leon would believe her about what she knows.
Why can't you fill me in yet?
Because you probably wouldn't believe me. That's why I want to show you. And when I do, you'll have all the answers and proof you'll need.
So that pretty much means she wasn't sure if she could trust Leon entirely. What, did you put cement in your eardrums during gameplay or something? And third, given Leon's legendary status in the US government, it's also possible that Helena knew about Leon and therefore decided to trust him to an extent.
Giant mutant fish. Check.
I understand the reference you're trying to make, but it's pointless to compare Neptune to Prologue as there are far more differences than similarities. Besides, with Prologue, you do engage in more directly than Neptune.
Somehow the Mines of Moria found their way into a Resident Evil game.
Dartigan makes a pop culture reference that isn't a sin of this game cliché.
This underground catacomb also functions as a giant mile-long water slide.
You're being disingenuous here, Dartigan. Yes, there was water already at the end of the path this leads to, but the makeshift water slide wasn't already here. That only happened because of the catacombs collapsing, which we see here. So that means, if this path didn't fill with water, your sin wouldn't make sense.
Helena should be very, very dead right now, what with being caught in the jaws of a mutant shark.
I agree. The only problem is that miraculously, Helena wasn't caught directly in its teeth, so that makes her survival less unbelievable to accept. Also, pronouncing Helena as Helena.
Helena.
Dude, her name is said out loud. There's no excuse for this. And finally, that BOW, contrary to belief, is not actually a shark.
It's so stupid.
I know. I got called out for my laugh too. I guess we can say both of our laughs are stupid since you're not being specific here. Only SC has a good laugh.
Just like in Jaws the Revenge, this shark can roar. Underwater.
But unlike Jaws the Revenge, this is not actually a shark. It was human before horrific mutation after extensive experimentation.
This game doesn't jump the shark, it shoots it while sliding backwards down a water slide before blowing it up with a barrel of TNT that comes out of nowhere.
I am not certain it is entirely necessary to dictate what is happening on the screen. I can see adequately. And for the third recorded time, the shark you speak of is not actually an elasmobranch fish characterized by a cartilaginous skeleton with 5 to 7 gill slits on the sides of the head and pectoral fins that are not fused to the head. It is a product of mutation following experimentation with the chrysalid virus.
He's sterilizing the area.
And destroying the evidence.
Considering that the president is dead and Simmons is only the national security advisor, which isn't on the order of presidential succession, how can he order a US city nuked?
If you mention nukes one more goddamn time, I'm making a new cliche for it. It wasn't a motherfucking nuke. It was a thermobaric bomb. And Simmons, I doubt, had the authority to have the bomb released. However, his position as an advisor allows him to make suggestions and influence the decision.
The BSAA confirmed it was the same one used in Eastern Europe 6 months ago, called the C virus.
C virus?
Does every Resident Evil game need a new virus? As far as I can tell, they all do pretty much the same thing.
Wow, man. Just wow. You repeated this same sin in your Resident Evil 5 video. If that's not an indication for your defenders that your videos are lazy clickbait bullshit, then I guess Akuma really is playable in the OG Resident Evil 2.
This plane has no company logo on its side.
Again, Dartigan points out what's on the screen. And since you're not aware of reality, just a small idea. The fact that Leon and Helena are on this plane and them being government agents likely has something to do with it. And that isn't far off from the real world. Try doing some real research sometime.
Leon and Helena, who are wanted for assassinating the president, presumed dead, and their last known location was a zombie-infected city, can walk around in first class strapped with guns.
For the love of Christ, Dartigan, this is due to Hunnigan faking their deaths. It was shown in the same cutscene where you called the bomb dropped on Tall Oaks a nuke.
We need to stop Simmons and take him into custody right away.
We have no evidence. And right now, you two are on the top of their list of suspects.
No.
Listen, Hunnigan. I need you to fake our deaths.
Can you do that?
What? Of course. But they'll figure it out eventually.
Of course, you didn't show that scene because it wasn't relevant to what you were trying to criticize, but for the players who did watch that scene and have a semblance of common sense, we know that throws a serious monkey wrench into your gears here.
There is no explanation given as to why or how this airplane was infected.
And I'm gonna stop you right fucking here. Because yes, there is an explanation, you're just too lazy to look it up. And a reminder for everyone, especially those watching this video,
Reading is fundamental.
Crawling QuickTime events.
Omega and I do not comprehend why this is considered a negative aspect considering the scenario.
There is no way in hell Leon noticed Ada standing on top of a moving train while he's piloting a crashing plane from the cockpit.
I don't think the game is saying that. Only you and whoever foolishly believes you and others would think that.
Leon and Helena survived this.
This isn't as impossible as you're trying to paint it considering how they crashed. Capcom is showing you how they survived, and yet you're still not accepting it.
Sherry? What are you doing here?
Sherry, the little girl from Resident Evil 2? Did every character from previous Resident Evil games decide to devote their lives to fighting bioterrorism?
Okay, first off, sitting Leon and Sherry's reunion. Second, going by main playable characters from the mainline games from Resident Evil 0 to Resident Evil 5, excluding Billy and Carlos, yes, most of the characters have done just that. Why is this a sin exactly? If you were a writer for these games, you'd have a leg to stand on.
Unlikely.
Considering it happened, and you showed the scene where it happened, I'd say very likely.
Him again? Friend of yours? Or like an ex-girlfriend? Guy doesn't know when to quit. Welcome to the club. You get used to it.
They actually wrote this dialogue, and paid people to act it.
Thank you for stating the obvious. But again, would it truly ruffle your feathers if you were a tiny bit more specific about why you're giving this a sin? Is it cringy for you? The choice of words? Just what is it? It isn't out of character for Leon anyway, as he said this to a mutated Ramon Salazar.
Monsters. Guess after this there'll be one less to worry about.
Ada is a good metaphor for this game's plot. It shows up for a few seconds every once in a while to do or say something, then disappears while it waits for you to walk down the next set of hallways to the next scene.
Yet another couple of mistakes. First off, that isn't Ada, and you know that. Second, during gameplay, characters deliver some plot-relevant dialogue. In fact, one of the most significant examples is during Ada's first level in the submarine.
My dearest Ada Wong. Jake Muller has been located in the Republic of Edonia. Your mission is to find out if his body has antibodies to the C virus. We cannot allow a vaccine to be produced. Agent Birkin will be sent in to acquire the target. Your job is to ensure they escape the country alive. Good luck.
That was dated 6 months ago. That can't be right. I don't remember those orders. Maybe they were passed on to someone else.
Death Roombas.
Must not laugh. But Roomba reference, quite humorous.
plan is to kill someone, best not to aim at their feet. Try for center mass next time, rookie.
Piers ain't a rookie, Darty. It should also be pretty obvious, if you've been paying attention of course, that unlike Chris, he isn't trying to kill Carla. You'd think that not shooting at center mass was because he was trying to stop her, but alas, even that's too much for whatever the hell is inside your skull to process.
Chris and Leon get in a way too long mistaken identity fight before finally realizing who the other is.
That's because it's dark, but beside that, sinning this scene. One of the coolest moments in Resident Evil history, and this mofo just scoffs it off. I think most of the fan base will be cool with me adding these many sins.
Ada can pull flash grenades, grappling guns, and whatever else she needs from behind her back even though she has no equipment belt or back pockets.
You mean just like how almost every playable character from this series can, at a given time, switch between multiple weapons freely? And don't bother trying to point out,
they have equipment belts and side packs.
Revisiting Resident Evil Revelations as an example, does Jill have any visible pack or pouch where she can store the Genesis? Is she not just pulling that beast out of nowhere?
Ah, Agent Birkin, impeccable timing. Kindly take these two into custody, won't you?
You know very well that Leon saved Sherry's life back in Raccoon City. Why would you expect her to arrest him and believe you?
The responses to this sin are numerous, human. I will thoroughly cover each one. To begin, Derek Simmons is Sherry Birkin's guardian and has been as such for a number of years. She directly reports to him, and this has led to Sherry Birkin trusting him, and in turn, Derek Simmons trusting her to the point where she learned well in advance about Neo Umbrella. Derek Simmons also is not aware that Leon Scott Kennedy has already made contact with Sherry Birkin. Had that not occurred, Derek Simmons' manipulation of Sherry Birkin would have had a higher rate of success.
It's for the benefit of the United States and global security.
Can't see how killing the president is good for the country!
This game is calling out its own bad logic now.
So why the hell are you sinning it? The characters in-game are basically calling out the villain on his bullshit, and instead of you removing a sin because you agree with it, you're giving it a sin? Does that make sense to anyone out there with common sense?
Dispose of them.
These guards start
Okay, hold on a second. I'm no one to criticize how you read your scripts and how you want to act them out. But you seriously put this line together with that pause at the start and really couldn't be bothered to do another take? 5 sins to start. Now, go ahead and finish so I can dissect the rest.
These guards start shooting and it takes a full second for their bullets to start hitting the ground around Leon and the others. Also, despite having height advantage and ample time to place their shots while Simmons talked to Leon, none of these guys managed to land a single shot.
Oh boy. Now for the rest of this crap. Just like how I pointed out in my Final Fantasy VII Remake video, Dartigan does not understand scenes being shown for the benefit of the audience. We're shown Simmons guards firing their weapons, and then we're shown that before the bullets reach Leon and Helena, they have enough time to get out of the way. And the reason for that is because Leon and Helena are not at point blank range, which increases the probability of not actually being shot.
Hold your fire! Those two are still of use to us.
Then why did you tell them to start shooting if you were worried Sherry and Jake would get hit? They were standing right next to Leon and Helena when you gave the order to fire.
Oh, for fuck's sake, dude. Simmons didn't expect Sherry to foolishly get close to their line of fire. Sherry being careless is the real sin here. She and Jake were next to Leon and Helena, but Derek's order was clearly not meant for Sherry and Jake. Pay attention, goddammit!
Where did Leon get that second handgun from? He hasn't had it the entire game and he doesn't have it after this cutscene.
Look, I know this game lacks with its instructions and showing the player how to do certain things to make the game easier. Thank you Capcom for making it clear that you can use both analog sticks, but this is minor by comparison, and it's kind of sad that you didn't know about the weapon functions. On PC, which seems to be the way you played this game, seems reasonable not to know, but on the consoles, it's easier to guess and accidentally find out about. That was the case for me, and that's how you see that Leon has 2 handguns available to him. With this train of thought, you probably also didn't realize that the Bear Commander assault rifle also fires grenade rounds. Reminds me of Dutch's weapon from Predator.
With all of these men around him, one single Javo managed to sneak up on Simmons and inject him with the C-virus, and then none of his men bother to stop Simmons as he staggers to the edge and falls on a speeding train. And none of his men bother to stop Leon and Helena from running right past them to jump on said speeding train.
You're just pointing out a bunch of things transpiring on the screen and saying they're sins. How the hell do you make so many of these videos and not enough people call out this lazy ass format? Let me break down these nonsensical nitpicks for the upteenth time.
With all of these men around him, one single Javo managed to sneak up on Simmons and inject him with the C-virus.
And why the hell is that a sin? Simmons' bodyguards are human and were all occupied trying to shoot Leon and Helena. They didn't anticipate a Javo attacking from behind and were clearly caught by surprise. Now for what's remaining of this ridiculous sin, it can't be stressed enough the way it shows how much more lazy you are when you find the brass cojones to say,
and then none of his men bother to stop Simmons as he staggers to the edge and falls on a speeding train.
Despite this scene showing the contrary, you can see right here Simmons pushing away one of the family members, and then right after this, we don't see him again. He could have joined the others trying to shoot Leon and Helena. He could have taken cover to avoid getting shot by Helena and Leon returning fire. Hell, maybe he was shot and we just weren't shown. No matter how that happened though, what is clear is that Simmons basically stumbled away from the family members while they were all busy, which led to him falling over the edge onto the train. However, we also learned from this file that Simmons was being carefully monitored after being infected. And finally, Leon and Helena were able to get past Simmons' men with no resistance because the two agents went under the platform where Simmons' men were standing on, which helped them slip by. Yo, what color is the sky in the world you inhabit?
Also, perfectly timed speeding train.
Dartigan points out what's happening on the screen, cliché.
Cell phone crush of anger cliché.
Oh my god, how many times is this guy going to just point at the screen, dictate what's happening, and just spew a bunch of crap and almost every other time add cliché at the end? Like, what the f***?
Also, what's the deal with people standing on moving trains in this game? We saw Ada doing that just a while ago.
They make for action-filled set pieces, Darty, which this game is filled to the brim with. Holy shit, man. Is your taste in movies as bland as you're suggesting?
Are you here to avenge the president? Is that it? You fool. Had he disclosed the truth behind Raccoon City, the US would have lost all its authority, and the global political order would have collapsed.
And killing the president by turning him to a zombie, nuking an entire US city, and infecting a major Chinese city won't do all that?
Just try and think about what Derek Simmons is and how he and the family operate. They're master manipulators who work behind the scenes to keep the United States at the peak of hierarchies of world power. They can easily use the incident in Tall Oaks to silence the president who was planning to reveal the US government's involvement with Raccoon City, and then with the incident in China, spin a different narrative from the truth that makes the US government look high and mighty in the end. You know, that reminds me a lot about someone. I wonder who.
Dartigan makes a pop culture reference that...
You know, I always wondered where all that extra body mass comes from when people turn into monsters in Resident Evil games.
Bruh, this ain't real life, and we're talking about a fictional series where viruses can do all sorts of things to a human being. These viruses also have a tendency to be unpredictable. This isn't that big a stretch.
It's just so stupid. It really is.
I'll just repeat this line from earlier. I know, I got called out for my laugh too. I guess we can say both of our laughs are stupid since you're not being specific here. Only SC.
That train has to outweigh Simmons by several hundred tons, yet he charges right into it and derails it.
Dartigan, for the love of Christ, I have glasses. I can see what's happening on the motherfucking screen without you needing to point it out. One more of these, and I'm going ham on these constant repetitions.
Simmons should be very, very dead after that, but isn't. Wait a minute, didn't Simmons derail the last train he ran into?
He isn't dead because he was injected by an enhanced strain of the C virus, which caused this mutation and massively increased his durability, speed, and strength. How the hell did you make this video, yet you've supposedly played other games in the series with similar exaggerated circumstances and not connect those dots? Also, Simmons derailed the other train because he wasn't interrupted during the attack.
Leon deflects a sheet of metal with 2 bullets from his handgun. I did not know one could do that.
I'm giving you 10 sins for completely ignoring how badass this is. Helena is dead centered on making sure Simmons pays for Deborah's fate and is so determined that she doesn't even flinch when a sheet of metal flies at her face inches away from striking her. And once it's out of the way, with her eyes still focused on her target, she makes a hell of a statement by putting a bullet in between Derek's eyes.
Getting hit by a speeding train just slowed Simmons down. Taking a bullet to the head, now that is his real weakness. By the way, this still doesn't kill him.
Oh boy. My man, wouldn't that mean that it's not his weakness? You shouldn't be surprised he isn't dead. It staggered him at best.
If getting pulled under the wheels of a train can't kill Simmons, then there are a few ways you can now kill this guy that I won't call bullshit on, including the traditional rocket launcher finisher.
You're seriously underestimating how powerful this virus is. The C virus itself is basically 2 previously seen viruses combined, and Simmons has been infected with a further enhanced version. One of the reasons the traditional rocket launcher finisher works by the time you get to it is because Simmons has already been on the receiving end of a massive amount of damage.
Is it over?
If you have to ask, it isn't.
I don't think so. And a huge thanks to Deadman for this suggestion.
Leon, we have a situation.
See?
So what about the example I used?
Maybe this is just me, but I really don't like it that Resident Evil zombies became speed zombies. I like them a lot more when it took them a minute to navigate down a hallway.
Yeah, it's definitely you and whoever else agrees with you. This is a perfect example of you using your personal opinion to say what's negative about a game, and it's far too biased for my liking as opposed to getting a general feel of things. Movies like Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead and both 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later have perfect illustrations of how dangerous and fear-inducing the fast-running zombies can be. You may claim not to like it, and I do like the classic zombies myself, but I'm not against this rendition at all, and given the overall positive reception of those 3 films I mentioned, I'd easily gamble knowing the odds are in my favor. And besides, this game does have both. There are zombies who definitely take their time, but you'd have to be new to video games for them to be a threat to you. Be a little more open-minded with certain concepts. Just an idea.
Damn, there goes Wilhelm's Chinese cousin.
How do you know that BSAA soldier is Chinese?
Wong is dead.
Nothing Leon hasn't heard before.
This Homo sapien really can't be bothered to use those organs of sight on his face, can he? If there is one concept that even I must comment on, is that this video game performs an exceptional accomplishment at having these humans show emotion. Leon Scott Kennedy cares a lot about Ada Wong, and he's hearing this news come from Chris Redfield, a man he himself previously says he trusts. Leon Scott Kennedy took Chris Redfield's words seriously, and this explains his near speechless reaction.
How many semi-trucks does that make that have nearly run over Leon over the course of the entire series? By my count, it's at least 3, 2 of which happened in this game.
Further reason why I don't think these videos are for you. Because there was a deliberate attempt in Resident Evil 4.
By all medical accounts, one or both of these 2 should be dead for standing next to an explosion that large, or at the very least death.
There are definitely some plot armor moments at work here in this game, and there's even a couple that I may agree with you on, but this is still believable enough given what we've seen. Recall this from the beginning of Chapter 2 in Leon's campaign. they survived that, so this isn't far-fetched.
One bandage on the arm is enough to heal all the internal bleeding Helena should have.
No. This is a deliberate manipulation of scenes. You pulled this from the opening tutorial, which showed Helena knocked unconscious from the explosion. During the actual campaign, this doesn't happen. You are deliberately lying to the audience, and I'm not letting that get by.
We saw one tanker truck explode earlier, and it didn't do anywhere near this kind of damage. Yeah, there was also a jet that fell on top of it, but a small amount of jet fuel isn't going to magnify the explosion that much.
It was the jet, plus dozens of other vehicles that caused this chain reaction according to the game. I admit, this scene is too ridiculously over the top for my liking, but it's not difficult to imagine how this happened.
This pilot just up and dies for no reason after flying in to rescue Leon and Helena.
So it's completely impossible that he was injured and infected before now. You really don't think before writing and acting out these scripts.
I think we all owe Michael Bay a huge apology. If anything, this game has proved that it's outdone him when it comes to unbelievable bullshit action scenes.
Michael Bay? The same guy who gave us not 1, not 2, not 3, but at least 4 cinematic train wrecks as opposed to this one game from Capcom? What are you, high off fresh Sharpies? This sequence is also insanely over the top, but hell to the f*** no, we don't owe him an apology.
Hope you got friends on the other side, because no one's gonna miss you here.
Nice one, Leon.
Bruh, you did something like this during The Evil Within, and I ain't say anything then, but step your clap game up, son. Real talk? Those claps sound like they're coming from a little girl, far from hitting puberty, not from an adult male with a manly voice like you claimed during your Spider-Man video.
Seriously, where does all that shit come from inside him? Guy turns into a T-Rex here.
Unpredictable mutations, enhanced C-virus, consistency with other games. Why is this so hard to understand?
Why is this building exploding?
Chris's campaign and the scene of his team arriving in China gives you an idea of what's going on.
Seriously, Leon survives that shit. Doesn't even faze the guy.
It's because of the vest he's wearing for starters, and the additional fact that those aren't bullets being shot at him.
Simmons has been run over by 2 trains, shot in the head, then had a helicopter unload on him. Yet stabbing him in the stomach with an arrow and a little fire puts him down. By the way, this doesn't kill him either.
This is surprising. No, really. You paid attention to how much damage Simmons has taken, yet you couldn't be bothered to wonder how this pilot died despite a visible wound. The contradiction there is thicker than Black Widow. Jesus. Anyway, Simmons has once again been incapacitated, but it's not enough. You seriously underestimate how powerful and dangerous this virus is.
Ada doesn't have Leon's number, so how exactly did she text him?
If she didn't, then how did she text him?
Lightning rods. Oh, wow.
That's it. 5 sins for every pointing out what I can see on the screen too. And so what about the lightning rod? This didn't come out of nowhere, as during Ada's campaign in the last chapter, it's revealed that lightning rod is there because of her. And the weather is well established as being stormy. What is the problem here?
All of that other bullshit didn't kill Simmons, but a rocket launcher and a fall off a building, that's what does it? I told you I wasn't gonna buy it.
It doesn't matter if you don't buy it, especially with how piss poor your attention span is. All of the other things didn't kill him, however, they did either injure him or straight out incapacitated him. And he didn't just simply fall off a building. He plunged a significant distance down from a skyscraper and was impaled. That was essentially the last straw for his durability, and it basically said to Simmons,
Bye-bye.
The odds of actually falling from this building and impaling yourself on this obelisk have got to be astronomically small.
As astronomically small as that chance is, according to whatever smoke and mirrors you want to try and use to excuse this dumbass sin, it in no way means it's impossible. You know why Simmons gets impaled on this obelisk, minus any symbolic reason? Because the writer said so. Logic and odds be damned.
Good news,
found a way to defeat the virus.
But you needed Jake and his blood to cure the C-Virus, and they're still in the oil rig in the ocean. And Leon still has the SD card Sherry gave him on the C-Virus. If you could cure it without either of those, why did the game make such a big deal about it?
I can see why more than one person pointed me towards covering this particular video. You had a chance to get at the writing in this scene, namely not knowing exactly what Hunnigan is talking about, and I would have given you points for that. But since this video series is about pointing out your mistakes, how do you know Hunnigan is talking about a cure for the C-Virus when she said they found a way to defeat it? Also, Jake's blood creates a vaccine, not a cure. Big difference between the two.
But I assisted in the attack.
The investigating commission have reviewed the evidence and feel it unjust to hold you liable for Simmons' crime.
The fuck? Yeah, I'm sure she was forced into helping Simmons kill the president, but she still helped kill the president. You go to jail for that. Period.
What you're not taking into account that likely factored into the decision that led to Helena's exoneration is how she played a role in the president's assassination. What she did was ultimately put out false information preventing the Secret Service from reaching Adam Benford in time to save him before the biohazard attack was carried out. It's not like Helena actually shot him outright. One of these two factors I just mentioned is unanimously more severe than the other, the way I see it.
Thanks, game. Informing me this scene takes place somewhere in Eastern Europe really helped add context by placing it in one of the 20 countries that make up Eastern Europe.
I don't see why this is a problem. This scene also has some emotional weight and significance, as this is the same location we see Chris in at the ending in his campaign.
One discount troubled protagonist opening, please, with a side order of drinking and bar fights.
I'm giving you 5 cents for just brushing off Chris Redfield's characterization. In the sea of negative comments that Resident Evil 6 has received, I don't see enough appreciation for what this game does right. And if there's one thing that I loved above everything in this game, it's how Chris was written. It humanized him in a way much different than any other game, and it isn't unrealistic from how a person in real life can react to trauma, similar to how Chris suffers from in this game. There's a reason he's sunk this low, and given how much he's been through, it was pretty much inevitable.
I see Chris finally got off the steroids after Resident Evil 5.
I touched on this subject in my Resident Evil 5 Remastered video, but to keep this short, you sure as hell don't know if Chris was on steroids in Resident Evil 5.
Never thought I'd find Chris Redfield wasting away in a shithole like this.
Did you play Resident Evil 5? I fully expected much worse than this after he starred in that mess.
The only real mess about Resident Evil 5 that I can vividly recall was your Everything Wrong With video on it, Mr. Calling a Sunrise a Sunset. And why the hell are you asking a video game character who exists in the same universe of the game you're criticizing if they played a video game about the universe they're in? Did you up the ante in your stupid pill dosage for this video or what?
You heard of this?
What is that?
You really don't remember anything, do you? Bioterrorism.
How could he remember something going on right now? That's a bioterrorist attack going on in China. It has no bearing on Chris and his current dilemma.
What? Piers is trying to use the current events to help Chris remember the past. Piers also likely knows Carla is involved, just like how she was with the event 6 months ago that resulted in Chris losing his memory. How the hell does that have no bearing on him?
You can't hide from your past, Chris. No matter where you go or what you do.
Who are you? What is this?
Chris would have to be way more drunk than depicted here to completely forget about fighting alongside Piers 6 months ago.
The possibility that this human doesn't have a brain to operate on is becoming more of a probability. Chris Redfield's amnesia has no bearing on being intoxicated, and the amnesia was brought about from the significant head trauma from 6 months ago during an operation in the fictional country of Edonia.
Okay. You don't remember me? Well, how about them? Look. I said look! Those were your men! Men who died under your command!
Oh, so that's why Chris is so troubled. He lost his entire BSAA team except Piers. Explain to me why he didn't get this depressed after losing all but one of his STARS team members in the first Resident Evil.
So you want me to explain why this sin is bullshit? Pfft, buddy, you came to the right place, and I'm so glad you asked. First off, Chris was never the captain of STARS. That position belonged to Albert Wesker, and therefore, Chris doesn't carry the blame nor the guilt of what happened in the Arklay mansion compared to this. Second, although I don't believe Chris fell into deep depression after the mansion incident, he was very vocal to RPD Chief Irons about wanting to investigate Umbrella. And third, Chris didn't lose all but one of his teammates during the first Resident Evil. Not counting the one character you're likely referring to, which is Jill, and also not counting Wesker, Rebecca, Barry, and Brad were all confirmed to have survived the events of the first game. So this is yet another example of you not knowing what the hell you're talking about.
6 months of searching for you. And this is what I find.
If Chris has been AWOL from service for 6 months, you should be here to arrest him, not put him in charge of another team.
Why exactly should peers arrest Chris? Chris is suffering from PTSD as well as amnesia, so you implying that he's a deserter is another ass pull to say the least. Besides, Chris is one of the founding members of the BSAA, he's one of their most decorated field agents, and he's one of the 2 agents who killed Albert Wesker, a man who planned to kill billions. Chris has saved countless lives in spite of mistakes he's made and deserves a chance to set things right.
We're taking you back, Captain. One way or another.
I don't know about everyone else, but when I think of someone who I'd want to fall into battle, it's not the drunk and depressed guy who got his entire team killed.
Look, I understand that Chris has made mistakes that got his previous team killed, and hell, we see him make mistakes in this game that leads to a similar outcome. But let me take this opportunity to remind you that this man's track record outshines itself in spite of his errors. Besides single-handedly taking down Alexia Ashford after she mutated not once, not twice, but 3 times, the crowning achievement in his career is engaging and succeeding in an operation that saw the end of Albert Wesker, whose intentions I just mentioned in the last sin. It really comes as no surprise soldiers are willing to follow him despite his fall. Sheva can sum it up.
Welcome to Africa. My name is Sheva Alama.
Chris Redfield.
Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Redfield. It's an honor.
Just Chris, thanks.
And if Chris's entire team was killed in his last mission, then who are all these guys waiting for him in the bar? Why would they be so devoted to someone they've never served under before?
Who are all these guys waiting at the bar? I know even basic science is too much for you, but I cannot fathom that you watched this scene entirely and yet somehow you found the most paperweight set of balls to ask this insanely outrageous question.
Can't keep running away. I have to face the truth. Accept responsibility.
Tumblr blogging.
Nice going there, Darty. Love the way you explain why scenes like this deserve sins. Wait.
Raise your hand if you think China would ever let an American anti-bioterror task force cross their borders and do all the fighting for them.
Although you can't see it, I'm definitely raising my hand for this one. Because the BSAA has branches all over the world, and one of them in fact is in the Far East. In addition, the organization is UN sanctioned. It's a real shame that proper research is too much for you. This video could have been less of a shit cyclone if you actually knew what you were talking about.
Does the C-Virus create zombies or intelligent mutants? Because it's doing both in this game.
Although the game explicitly shows the differences, as usual, I'll spoon feed you the details. When the C-Virus is airborne, like in the attack on Tachi, it creates zombies. When the C-Virus is injected into a person's bloodstream, they mutate into a Juavo.
RPG that should totally kill both Chris and Piers doesn't.
It didn't kill them due to the body armor they're wearing, besides the fact that the explosion was far away enough to not kill them.
RPG that should totally kill both Chris and Piers doesn't. Stick with me, I'm building a theme here.
Oh, that's fine. I have several reoccurring themes for these sins anyway. For this one, it's called Dartigan repeats a sin to pad his sin counter cliché.
Falling debris continues to have perfect timing in games.
I'll repeat this line from earlier. They make for action-filled set pieces, Darty, which this game is filled to the brim with. Holy shit, man. Is your taste in movies as bland as you're suggesting?
Alpha Team, get out of there now. Preparations to bomb the building are complete. Planes have been scrambled.
We don't want to be here when those birds show up.
Can't they just call off the bombing until you're clear of the building? Why are they even bombing a now empty building?
No, they cannot call off the airstrike. Even though the specific reason to your question isn't addressed here, Pierce gives a good response during gameplay that you didn't pay attention to.
They've started bombing. Guess they don't care that we're still in here. It's not personal. You know the mission takes priority.
Missile that should totally kill both Chris and Pierce doesn't. See? Told you there'd be more.
Dartigan repeats a sin to pad his sin counter cliche.
Flashbacks are just as painful for Chris as they are for us.
This sin is just fucking stupid. Okay, so there's a lot of them in this video, but why the hell would we the player be bothered by this? It's relevant information to the plot to begin to understand why Chris is suffering from PTSD.
Each and every one of you may be ready to die for our cause, but it's my job to make sure we all get through this alive.
Suck it up, Vin. Sorry, sir.
No one gets left behind. Not on my watch. Understood?
Yes, sir. Is he always this awesome?
Man, no one better show this kid the president's speech from Independence Day. He'd cream his pants.
You were just desperate to make a pop culture reference, weren't you?
Every vehicle that people ride in this game is ultimately crashed or blown up.
Really? So what about Ada's helicopter? You know, the one she pilots in China, which happens to be the same one Leon and Helena departed in.
Giant mutant that you have to climb on top of to defeat? Check.
Oh, so you're trying to compare this to El Gigante back in Resident Evil 4, huh? Well, glad to rain on your parade. Because you don't have to jump on its back to kill it, and neither do you have to here.
Can't lose sight of the BSAA's mission.
To fight bioterrorism, sir. I know what we're here for, rookie.
I don't think I've ever encountered a more "please notice me, senpai" character in a game before.
That wouldn't be surprising, honestly, given all of the obvious details that just fly over your head all the time in these videos you make.
Blowing a train car into the air and then getting under it before it falls.
Hold on one fucking second. Why are you going backwards with these scenes? This scene you're showing is an in-game cutscene, and right after this, you start the section on the bridge. But the scene you covered before this happens at the end of the section outside of City Hall, which chronologically happens after this one. 10 sins for this not immediately obvious mistake. Now, go ahead and state your nitpick for this scene.
Blowing a train car into the air and then getting under it before it falls on them was their plan, and that plan works. Was Michael Bay consulted on this game?
Yes, it worked. Welcome to fictional media where writers can make things happen however they please. Take 5 cents for pointing out what happened on the screen also.
Who are you?
I work here. My name's Ada Wong. They held me hostage.
Chris knows who Leon and Sherry Birkin are from Resident Evil 2, but has apparently never heard of Ada Wong.
Why the hell should we just expect Chris to know Ada? Claire never encountered Ada during Resident Evil 2, so she'd never relay that to Chris, and it wouldn't exactly benefit Leon, who works for the US government, if he openly admitted to knowing a spy who even stole a Las Plagas sample from him.
Neo Umbrella.
Neo Umbrella.
Repeat the answer in the form of a question cliché.
Oh yes, this is an absolute horrid thing about this game. Hey, defenders of Resident Evil 6, I'm sorry, but this guy has got you here. If I roll my eyes any harder, I'd end up blind.
So the C-virus came from them.
Who else would it come from? Not as if there are many ridiculously evil corporations out there spreading zombie viruses.
Oh dear God, this motherfucker cannot be motherfucking serious right now. I need to break for the next couple of sins. I'll let Sin Counter explain this one so I can recharge my breaking point. SC?
Omega, I do not take very kindly to the matter of these interruptions, as I attempt to produce more of these shorts.
Come on, buddy. Help me out here. I'll give you access to my external hard drive so you can get your hands on even more videos. Come on, SC. Just a few more, and I'll handle the rest, and this treasure trove of content is free for you to look through.
I look forward to this opportunity, Omega. Alright, I will shoulder the burden for the next few sins. Let me observe where you left off.
So the C-virus came from them.
Who else would it come from? Not as if there are many ridiculously evil corporations out there spreading zombie viruses.
Well, I failed to calculate this. Even I, a highly advanced artificial intelligence of extreme comprehension and superior abilities to humans, could not anticipate the bar in fact being set even lower. I mentioned this in the last installment, and now the bar has been set lower than Omega's monetary income.
You metal chrome dome motherfucker.
Oh man up, you little pussy. I'm just pulling your dick.
NANI?
Now returning to business. For this ridiculous sin, there has been a different antagonist in every Resident Evil game, including the viral agent present. Resident Evil Revelations had Outtro, who had access to the T of this virus. Resident Evil 4 had Los Iluminados, who had access to Las Plagas. Resident Evil 5 had Tricell with Albert Wesker and Exeligione, who had access to Ouroboros. Unintelligent Specimen, also known as Dartigan. There may not be another organization currently that we know about attempting infecting cities of humans at the same time as Neo Umbrella, but my examples show more than one groups at different times that have attempted infecting a large populace. Your sin is as preposterous as the video game plumbers don't wear ties. It gladly warrants more sins.
There's something to remember me by.
Needle grenade.
Stupid sin.
Despite all of these soldiers wearing body armor, these needles managed to find the unprotected parts and inject everyone in Chris's team with the C-virus.
It's not possible that these needles managed to pierce the armor of these soldiers, human?
Senpai noticed me.
From my recordings of Omega's playthrough of this video game, the raw emotion that Roger Craig Smith put into his portrayal of Chris Redfield was considerably remarkable. With that said, I am assured the audience will come to terms with the additional sins.
Chris's entire mutated team is bearing down on him while Piers drags his unconscious body along the floor. Totally not seeing how they survived this, and neither did the game's writers since they just cut back to the present without explaining how they got out of that.
And for my final contribution to this video, since this is becoming too much even for myself, believe me, even I comprehend how unlikely the survival of Piers Niven and the unconscious Chris Redfield seems. However, after searching the web for a feasible response, I came across this. Now granted, we are not witnesses to this occurring in the video game, but there are two spoken lines of dialogue we hear in the video game. This is the first one from Piers Niven.
Piers, Finn, you're with me. Everyone else keep searching out here.
HQ. 3 of us are splitting off from the group, heading further into the building.
And this is the second one from Chris Redfield.
One of them's hatching, sir.
Call it into HQ.
This lends weight to this theory that the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance did in fact have additional soldiers within close proximity as backup. They could have already been deployed once the additional bioorganic weapons emerged in the main corridor. And now, Omega, allow me to continue the projects on the other side of the spectrum. These shorts are quite entertaining to produce.
Glad you're having a good time with that, SC. Thanks for helping me out here with these, even if briefly.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Great. Now I just gotta make sure the rest of this train wreck doesn't kill me.
Can you really even call this a Resident Evil game anymore when you have to fight a helicopter? I submit that you cannot.
And I will submit yet another counterpoint to your bullshit. Because in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, even though it was optional and strongly hinted to be non-canon anyway, You can take out Nikolai in his helicopter. And I did it every single time I had the option.
Drink it in, pal. That's how failure tastes.
Giant snake? Check. That's another one off the list of things previous Resident Evil games did and did better.
Nah, bruh. I'm not in agreement whatsoever. Illusija's segment was without a doubt my favorite section of Chris's campaign and one of my favorites in the whole game. The setup and atmosphere are absolutely fantastic, and it's sections like these which I wish the game received more recognition for. You're in a desolate and abandoned area of a city in China filled with claustrophobic-inducing corridors, hallways, and ventilations, not a lot of light to illuminate the areas you explore, and the environment is filled with creepy details that make you wonder just what the hell happened here before Chris and his team even arrived. All the while, Chris and his team are being picked off by a monster they can barely even see and can kill them just as fast if they do spot it. Yawn is a classic for sure, but I have no doubt that the BSAA would have a far easier time taking it down as opposed to this fucker right here. So, This, I believe, is one thing this game does better than a previous game using a classic monster. 6 seriously one-ups it here.
What the hell were you thinking, pulling a kamikaze stunt like that?
You don't get to complain now about what a crap Captain Chris is. You were the one who wanted him back in the first place.
The hell you mean he doesn't get to complain? Chris took a huge risk with his action, and Piers most definitely can call him out on it. He wanted Chris back for sure, and for many good reasons, but not to make mistakes like that. Piers couldn't possibly predict that Chris would be consumed with revenge and that it would cloud his judgment.
No one can ever see an ambush coming in a meat locker.
And how the bloody hell would they when the enemy has camouflaging abilities? You literally show this on the screen and still 1 + 1 to you equals 11.
Captain!
Looking for me, boys?
Even though all of them had their backs turned to her, Ada shoots the only non-main character with a needle. What happened to those needle grenades you had 6 months ago?
I'm fairly certain that Carla just wants to torment Chris psychologically. She caused the death of the team members he was in command of 6 months ago, and here she is deciding to do the same. Notice how Carla could have also just killed Simmons with the Juavo he was infected by. This fits into her patterns and character.
Also, that makes 2 teams now that Chris has led to their deaths. 3 if you count Stars. Remember, they wanted Chris to lead another team.
Stars doesn't count as he was the point man of Alpha Team, not the captain like I said before. And thanks for pointing out something that the game points out. This means you pointing this out as a sin is redundant and unnecessary since the game itself acknowledges Chris's failure.
This C4 was in a pile of cocoon rubble a second ago. Now it's lying on an empty floor.
Or it was on the BSAA soldier before he got infected, and it simply was unaffected throughout his mutation, therefore emerging unscathed? Gotta ask, what's it like not having a normal brain?
A block of C4 that big would make a way bigger explosion.
And how would you know that? Also, this document shared to me by a friend helps shed some light on C4 explosions. I admit, I was curious myself after seeing the different times C4 is used in the game, and this document's details are backed up also in this Mythbusters video. Check it out.
You hadn't been blinded by vengeance, we could have prevented some of those deaths.
Also, if you hadn't insisted on him leading the team.
This is like the 3rd time you're trying to send Piers insisting on having Chris back in the BSAA. I get it. You don't like Chris Redfield. Stop repeating sins to pad your sin counter.
I feel sorry for all the men that died believing in you. What happened to the legendary Chris Redfield, huh? What happened to you? It's a good thing Finn's not around to see you this way.
You wanted him to be in charge. You reap what you sow, asshole.
You most certainly do reap what you sow, like these extra sins for padding the sin count.
Want to follow me around? Fine. Just make sure you stay out of my way.
As long as you don't cross the line again, that won't be a problem. Ada's just playing with you. When are you gonna realize that?
I'm not stupid enough to fall for her bullshit. You should have a little more faith in your captain.
That fucking laugh.
I speak for everyone who's ever played this game when I say, fuck this part. Fuck this part in particular.
Lord finally grants me some mercy. A sin I can get behind. Playing this section on a new game with Chris nearly made me invent new curse words. Those goddamn snipers were the bane of my existence in this section. The partner AI is arguably better in this game than in Resident Evil 5, but Piers can only do so much. What the hell was Capcom thinking, making this section for the player and not making the sniper rifle available sooner?
Repeated cutscenes.
Sitting one of the coolest moments in Resident Evil again, and calling this repeating cutscenes, when there is in fact a different scene where we see Chris take some responsibility after thinking things over following his encounter with Leon. Yeah, these many sins will do.
You know, you could have killed both of them. They're lying on the ground, injured, and you have a gun and lots of grenades. Seems like the perfect opportunity.
Carla is arrogant. A very common character trait among villains in this series. She's also likely leaving Chris and Piers to her enforcers so they can kill them.
You feel it spreading through your body yet? I'm just giving you exactly what you gave me, Simmons.
Ada is talking to Simmons on her phone cube thing right after the Javo infected Simmons with a C virus. For some reason though, she's transmitting her phone call over the ship's intercom so Chris and Piers can hear it too.
That,
for some reason though,
of yours, I'll chalk it up to her characterization. She could simply be gloating, given how much she accomplishes and how close she comes to actually winning. It plays into her arrogance.
Still haven't had enough, huh? Even after losing all your men? Again. With your track record, I gotta say, I'd hate to be a member of your team, Chris.
Lady has a point, Chris. You sucked more than usual in this game.
I instinctively knew, leading up to this sin, that even though the game itself is pointing out Chris's shortcomings, therefore doing what you like to do, that you would still sin this scene. Like, what the f***? Do you agree with Carla or not? If you do, which your spoken dialogue implies, then why the hell are you sinning this?
What you say? That you only meant well, cause you did. What you say?
First of all, where the hell did Neo Umbrella get their hands on a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier? Those cost a couple $1 billion and are not exactly something you can just buy. Second, why would China allow an unrecognized aircraft carrier into their territorial waters without a response?
The answer to both of your points are the same response. The family.
The missile countdown has already started. Find the control unit and stop the launch.
Note to self, never have any part of my evil apocalyptic plan set on a countdown. Just have everything activate immediately.
Maybe the FBI should know a thing or two about your evil apocalyptic plan. But anyway, the missile launches despite Piers' attempts to stop it, so your sin is pointless.
Ada Wong is dead.
Repeated cutscenes. Skip.
Dartigan repeats a sin to pass.
There's irony for you. A man who spent his entire life trying to destroy the world, and now his son is the only one who can save it.
I like to imagine the writer of this game sat back from his computer after writing that plot twist with a contented smile on his face. Another hard day's work done.
That wasn't a plot twist. Also, Dartigan describes how he writes his terrible scripts.
Here I am coming to rescue him.
The man who killed his father. Like I said, irony.
I don't know. Maybe it's fate.
This is not as deep or as ironic as you think it is.
It most definitely is ironic. It isn't a plot twist like you said in the last sin.
Secret underwater base. That's how you know this game wants everyone to take it seriously.
This game is actually trying, unlike you who said this before.
But then again, this is Resident Evil and it might have been retconned a couple games ago and I just haven't kept up. And neither do I care to.
Get the fuck out my face with that shit.
After we rescue Jake, I'm turning in my gun.
What? Wait a minute.
It's about time someone took my place. I'd be honored if it was you.
I don't think I'm ready for that.
You've borne witness to what an incredible fuck-up Chris is. It wouldn't take much effort on your part to better him.
Okay, dude, relax. Even if I went underground into the subways, I could still visibly and easily see your hate boner for Chris Redfield. It's reaching Nero in Devil May Cry 4 levels. And Piers obviously has some doubt, as he hasn't faced what Chris has, especially single-handedly.
See your father in you.
Except that he developed an inexplicable English accent in between games.
Darty, what the hell does an accent have to do with mannerisms and physical resemblance, which especially the latter is what Chris is referring to here?
Go ahead. Shoot. You have every right to.
When did Chris develop all this sudden guilt over killing Wesker? You don't need to feel guilty for killing someone who tried to destroy the world just because said person has a kid.
Now I have a confession to make. Years ago, when I first saw this video, I absolutely agreed with this statement, thinking that you knew what you were talking about. But luckily, I got pulled out of the Matrix and went to rehab to get off the brainwashing, manipulating stupid pills you were feeding me with these videos. Chris does not feel guilty at all about killing Wesker. He is simply being a responsible human being, as these actions show, and hell, I'll even say it in more layman's terms. He's being a man about this shit. He isn't hiding the fact from Jake, he's telling it straight to his face, and willing to accept any consequences that come his way from his past actions. You could learn a lot from this.
Tell me, we just following orders? Or was it personal?
Look, there was a volcano, I punched a boulder, it was all very stupid and I'd rather not talk about it.
You know what? F my serious persona for this one. That still makes me chuckle even now, and I'll give you a sin-off for that.
Looks like someone just wanted Plague Incorporated. They even infected Madagascar.
Not exactly, buddy. This was simply the goal of House after it's unleashed. Remember when Carla said,
Deja vu, boys. Raccoon revisited. But this time, it won't just be one city. It'll be the whole world.
This ramp is so impractical it could only serve as an obstacle course for running from a giant monster.
Unless you work here or know the schematics, I don't think it's up to you to tell us what's impractical about what you're seeing on the screen.
This thing has a vendetta against Piers' right arm.
Why the hell is this a sin? I actually felt bad for Piers here, considering this and what follows is part of his noble sacrifice he pulls off to save his captain's life.
Oh, so that's why I kept going after his right arm. He read the script and saw Piers would be getting a new one.
This sin is so stupid that I'll just coin it.
All it took to kill this world-ending nightmare was some electricity and Chris's combat knife. Let me remind you of all the stuff that Simmons, a pawn in the fake Ada's plan, could survive.
And I'm just gonna stop this right here and spare my audience. What of course you didn't bother to research or do any reading on is that House, despite it being a formidable opponent and one of the most dangerous BOWs ever in this series, the monster is actually incomplete and is therefore not operating at full strength and capabilities. This file reveals as such. But what you're showing here is just enough to, like Simmons, incapacitate it. As we the player witness in a little while, House requires another powerful shock of electricity and the explosion of the underwater facility to finally put it down for good.
Piers! No, don't do this! Open the door!
There's really no good reason for Piers to sacrifice himself here. He already knows that Jake's blood contains antibodies for the C-virus. But I guess someone had to fulfill the heroic sacrifice quota for this game.
So, your Mr. Magoo Jr. characteristic from Revelations 2 is back for more, huh? I mean, that has to explain it, because you somehow think that Piers by this point can have these mutations reversed. And as I mentioned before, Jake's blood creates a vaccine. A vaccine is not a cure.
No matter where in the ocean you get stranded, a rescue chopper will be there almost immediately.
Dartigan again isn't paying attention, people. I don't give a shit how long ago you made this video. Chris and Piers went to the lab site at night, and if you open your fucking eyes and just look at the screen while also turning off your black and white filters, you'd realize that now the sun is out. Therefore, there was no almost immediate rescue. It took some time before Chris was found. Jesus, man.
Captain. We've received new orders.
They put Chris in charge of another fucking team?
Yes. Also, this was a missed opportunity for Capcom for a cameo by someone like Jill. That would have worked better as a sin, Darty. Seriously, Capcom, if she doesn't show up post RE5 by the next game, we riot in the forums.
Whistling.
Why the hell is whistling a sin? Also, real quick, because this is definitely worth mentioning, but it's alleged that what Jake is whistling is a variation of a lullaby that plays at various times in Resident Evil Code Veronica. I tried my best to confirm if this popular bit of trivia is factual, but an old tweet from Jake's voice actor Troy Baker doesn't explicitly support the idea. I did, however, on a playthrough of Code Veronica, record the music box melody from Alfred's residence, and I played it simultaneously with Jake's whistling. And here's how they sound. Also, the belief that it's a reference to Code Veronica is further supported by something I noted in Resident Evil 6. Jake's very first cutscene is called Boy Meets Girl. Perhaps this is a reference to Steve first meeting Claire? He certainly qualifies as a boy. Anyway, sorry for getting a bit off track, people. Yeah, why is whistling a sin again?
At some point, he's gonna eat that apple to look more like an asshole.
No, he's not. Besides the stupid apple asshole joke, the apple he does take a bite out of at the end is a clearly different one from the one in this first cutscene.
Well, he was. Still looks like an asshole though, even without eating it.
That's part of his character, looking and acting smug. Even Sherry calls him out on that.
Jake, are you okay?
I've taken bigger spills. Of course, I don't have that healing factor of yours.
Too bad the fall didn't knock the wise ass out of you.
I'm sure this wasn't part of the contract.
Does that guy having multiple eyes not freak you out even a little? You're treating this whole situation a little too casually, even though you had no idea what those injections would do.
I believe that Jake not even commenting on that is a clue that answers your question. I know you're horrible at noticing characterization also, but did you notice Jake's chilled reaction at narrowly being slashed with a knife? Seriously, scenes like this can tell you a lot. If you pay attention, of course.
Jake fails to see Ada Wong even though she's clearly in his line of sight and not exactly blending in with the background.
Now normally one not spoken word isn't enough to warrant this sin. However, the one word not spoken considerably changes what you actually audibly say. I'm speaking of course of you writing out fake Ada Wong, yet not saying fake, thereby saying Ada Wong when this isn't Ada Wong and you know this already. So Dartigan doesn't follow his own script cliche. And furthermore, how the hell do you know Jake can't see Carla? He may not be acknowledging her for whatever reason, but it is possible that he can see her. And I'm not about to follow your blind-ass beliefs.
Everyone in this game is only minorly inconvenienced by missiles and explosions.
With Jake, however, it's more believable given his above-human capabilities.
And those things that attacked us, they were all exposed to a new virus called the C virus.
By this point, I'm willing to wager that the C in C virus is short for cocoon. Perhaps it's petty of me to sin for that, but damn if I didn't hate it when I put that equation together.
Sin Counter said it before, but the C is for chrysalid, not cocoon. Even an in-game document tells you this. This is a channel with over 300,000 subscribers. Somehow.
Same strain that you just took a dose of. It didn't affect you because you've got the antibodies.
How does Jake have antibodies to a virus he's never encountered before? Supposedly he gets it from his dad, but Wesker was never exposed to the C virus either. This is a brand new strain created after his death.
Immunity works a different way in Resident Evil. Let's take a look at this file from Resident Evil 5. This is Jill's file that you unlock. It says right here that pure unadulterated antibodies that Jill has completely protects her from being a test subject for Ouroboros. And those antibodies were from her infection with the T-virus, not Ouroboros. The T-virus. Do the math.
Also, why did the US government figure this one mercenary in Eastern Europe would have antibodies? They don't know that he's Wesker's son yet at this point, so what clued them in?
I guess you didn't bother listening to Simmons during Ada's campaign on a recorded message for Carla explaining that he knew Jake was Wesker's son. Simmons sent Carla to confirm Jake's abilities. That by extension also includes Sherry, as Derek most likely told her. As for the how, we never learned that detail in the game, but given the family's wealth and connections, Simmons learning that Wesker fathered a son really isn't a stretch.
Helicopter gunners are apparently not trained to lead their target.
It can be hard to hit a target who's in motion, FYI.
That missile exploded right above his head. Why is he not dead?
Again, Jake is above the average human.
Unstoppable tyrant that chases the main character through the entire game? Check.
Fine. The Ustanok is not as iconic as the original Nemesis. I'll give you that much. But it was just as formidable and intimidating as that classic Resident Evil baddie. Ustanok is clearly an homage, and I think it was done well to offer more variety to Jake's campaign.
We met? You jarheads all look the same to me, pal. Sorry.
Considering how little Jake and Wesker resemble each other, I'm curious how Chris sees any resemblance.
Says you. Jake and Wesker most definitely have a resemblance despite your attempt to swat that aside. Besides, Chris is definitely the one, but not only, character in this game who can definitely testify to that.
Mr. Muller is requesting compensation for his cooperation. $50 million.
Am I supposed to think Jake is an asshole because he wants $50 million for helping stop the C-virus? That seems pretty fair to me. He'll be an asshole when he finishes eating that apple he started on earlier.
Good God, dude. You are desperate to use that joke, despite the fact that he didn't even take a bite out of that apple in his first cutscene. So your
when he finishes eating that apple he started on earlier
line makes no sense, and I'm giving this extra sins. As for the rest of this crap, the correct attribute you want to use is selfish. Yes, he's selfish for wanting so much money for offering just a pint of his blood, but it's important to show this to see what kind of person he is now compared to what he becomes by the end of the game. For all of the complaints I've heard about Jake Muller, it was refreshing to me to see a character with some growth.
Guy that you're all chummy with back there.
You mean Chris?
That's the one.
What about him?
Forget it.
Okay, I can sort of understand why Chris has a strange feeling about Jake. He did know his dad after all. But why would Jake suddenly be curious about Chris? He doesn't even know who his dad is yet, or that Chris killed him.
Jake's curiosity or intuition came about because of Chris asking him,
Hey. We met? You jarheads all look the same to me, pal. Sorry.
Not only that, Jake most certainly paid attention to Chris, demonstrating that he knew Sherry very well.
Somehow the Ustanok not only caught up with the helicopter, but managed to grapple onto it.
Darty, see these guys here? That's how Ustanok caught up.
Without that explosion, Jake wouldn't have made that jump. Explosions are now actually helping the characters in this game.
I'd bet he would have, despite the explosion, given his abilities.
It's so stupid. What were they thinking?
The only thing that's stupid here is that fucking laugh. As for the scene, it's over the top, but holy shit is that just awesome in an 80s and 90s action movie sense. While airborne, the Ustanok wields a Gatling gun one-handed and holds onto a chopper with the other hand. Sorry dude, I'm with RE6 on this one.
Yeah, Jake would be yanked away from Sherry by the parachute opening.
Unless they held on tight? maybe?
Pull it out.
No, you'll bleed to death.
I had this exact same conversation back on prom night.
Whatever conversation you had as a result of catching after pitching, I'd rather not want to know about when I click on a video called Everything Wrong with Resident Evil 6.
Healing factor ex machina.
You came very close to being right about something. It's not a sin, but this almost counts as a deus ex machina. However, Sherry's character design itself has a hint of her abilities. Bonding with the G-Virus has slowed down her aging, and as a result, and I'll ask this as a question, does Sherry look like she's 26 years old?
A man and a woman holed up in a cabin during a storm, a cozy fireplace, nothing to do but huddle together for warmth. This sure is a romantic scene. And that's why I'm sending it. Zombie story, guys. Romance isn't wanted.
So, let me make sure I understand this. You're sending this scene, despite the great things this scene accomplishes, just because the setting has elements of a romantic scene. Yet we see no such interaction between Jake and Sherry. So why not send Leon and Helene a scene in the plane much earlier, given their dialogue, and slowly bonding throughout their campaign?
My dad was a scientist. He was working on BOWs when I was exposed. Luckily, I was treated with the vaccine before it was too late.
You just skipped over a hell of a lot of stupid shit from that game.
So what the hell are you sending this for then? Sherry is getting exactly to the point of how she acquired her powers, and mentioning some other critical details, one of which will be important later. She is doing what you're asking, and you're still giving the game a sin.
But the virus adjusted and adapted. It's been a part of me ever since.
So instead of turning you into a zombie, the virus your dad injected into you gave you a healing factor? Sure, why not? By this point, I'm surprised this world's entire economy isn't based on viruses.
Oh yeah, this cements it, and I don't think a subsequent sin will prove this further. This is your worst video on a Resident Evil game. Resident Evil Revelations 2 held that honor, but after listening to this audible bile spew from your mouth, holy shit does it take the cake. First off, in the last sin before you cut Sherry off to insert your dumb ass comments, she literally says,
He was working on BOWs when I was exposed. Luckily, I was treated with the vaccine before it was too late.
So obviously, she didn't mutate because she was treated with a vaccine. The vaccine didn't cure her of the G-Virus, it stopped it from spreading further. And because of that, Sherry's body in time adapted to the G-Virus, giving her abilities beyond a normal human. But I'm afraid your stupidity doesn't end there, because there's this turd of a line.
So instead of turning you into a zombie, the virus your dad injected into you gave you a healing factor?
My dude, William Birkin, after being shot by Umbrella's team sent to confiscate his work, injected himself with his own G-Virus in an act of desperation. The G-Virus does not turn you into a zombie. We saw something similar with Curtis Miller in Resident Evil Degeneration. Once again, this sin gets extra for going the extra mile to be particularly uneducated.
What happened to your father?
His research killed him. By the time he died, his body had mutated so much, he wasn't even recognizable.
These two have so much in common. It's like they created Jake to be Wesker's out-of-nowhere son just to fill this role. Oh.
Honestly, in my opinion, this works better despite some questions on continuity that Jake's lineage presents. I mean, given Wesker's cold personality throughout the entire series, it actually says something that William was possibly his only friend. Seeing Jake and Sherry also building and having a friendship just like their fathers is a great parallel, but it's also heartwarming and even has some irony, because unlike their father's much more destructive actions, here are their offsprings working towards helping people. Having Jake be Wesker's son worked better for his interactions with the other characters.
This is still a Resident Evil game, right?
Yes.
Outrunning an avalanche on foot. I've seen enough depressing videos of real people being caught in the path of avalanches to not let this one slide.
Not to downplay depressing videos like that, but Jake and Sherry are not real people. Also, they didn't run a great distance as the rest of the scene you cut off shows. Just saying.
There's a random dude in a t-shirt walking around inside an ice cave in the mountains at night.
Thank you again for pointing out what I can see on the fucking screen, Dartigan. The random dude probably works here. You again cut the important scene that shows after he dies, there's a key item in his hand which the player retrieves to escape from Ustanok. And remembering your attention span, Sherry calls this a mine, which is what this area is, not a random ice cave.
You know, the Ustanok doesn't have to fight their mining drill directly. They can just step to the side and kill them since they can't turn it in this narrow hallway.
Ustanok is not exactly built like a straw, Magoo Jr. And the fact that this particular area is narrow actually says it all. It really doesn't give Ustanok options as far as evasive maneuvers.
Healing factor or not, she should be dead.
Dartigan answers his own question, cliché.
Albert Wesker was a colossal imbecile. A fool who tried to destroy the world. He was also your father.
What?
Which makes you heir to a very special blood type.
If you knew he was Wesker's son before, why didn't you capture him earlier? He was introduced with a C-virus injector that he got from you after all.
You cannot be serious. Now, this throws yet another monkey wrench into your gears, because earlier you pointed out Carla's presence in Jake's opening cutscene. Don't you think Carla was eavesdropping on Jake and Sherry's conversation? And if not, she probably noted how Jake didn't turn into a Juavo after injecting himself with the C-virus. This means that first, Carla needed to be sure Jake was Wesker's son, and once she knew that, she sent Ustanok after him.
Hey, it's your man.
Oh, easy, Lo Yao. I see how hung long.
It took Jake 6 months to think of this escape plan.
I think all of us should be considered really lucky that you hold no position of strategy, like military or intelligence agencies, based on these brain-dead criticisms. I mean, you point out how simplistic the escape seems, yet you are not realizing how Jake has been planning this and taking every factor that he could into account, like the layout of the facility, security cameras, guard routes, and shifts, etc. Hell, even learning the language was part of that escape. Great job completely missing that detail.
I'm seeing a surprising amount of not shooting the escaping prisoner from these guards who have guns aimed right at Jake.
Your observation is correct, but my guess is that Jake is still more valuable to them alive than dead, therefore did not want to immediately resort to more life-threatening measures. That could explain the reluctance to shoot to kill. This theory of mine is supported by this line of dialogue we hear shortly after Jake begins his escape plan.
2 dead subjects have escaped from their quarters. They must not leave the facility. Permission to use firearms has been granted.
I knew she was here.
Jake and Sherry haven't seen each other since they were captured 6 months ago, but somehow their individual escape plans coincided on the exact same day and time.
Holy shit. People, these sins are just getting worse with how blatant these lies are. The cutscene this individual uses in this sin is the exact same that shows how Sherry escaped and what the circumstances were. What he did, of course, was cut the starting portion that completely derails this guy's thought of logic.
I don't need a weapon to kill assholes like this.
As you can clearly see, the plans didn't exactly coincide on the same day. Jake caused a power outage, and Sherry simply thought on the fly and capitalized on the opportunity. Context is important, and it's one of many reasons I'm going to continue making these videos no matter how long these projects can take.
But wait! There's more!
Individual escape plans coincided. Did every single thing in this lab have to be white, or is this just a case of that being way easier on the level designers?
Your ignorance and laziness to remedy said ignorance is showing. There's a symbolic reason for everything to be white, and given what Neo Umbrella is doing with Jake and Sherry, and the hazardous nature of Jake and Sherry's blood, it makes a lot of sense.
Female hospital gowns are designed with an eye towards sex appeal.
Dartigan doesn't know shit about fan service cliché.
Not only were Jake and Sherry's clothes from Adonia brought all the way to China with them, they were stored in lockers right next to each other.
I have no comment.
It's something about using my antibody to enhance the C virus.
That's not how antibodies or viruses work. You might as well be using bleach to enhance E. coli.
What are you, a virologist now? Stop pretending like you know how this shit works. Especially on a fictional virus capable of creating zombies.
I guess he had an antibody that could fight off any virus.
That's also not how antibodies work.
What are you, a virologist now? Stop pretending like you know how this shit works. Especially on a
You can blame your father all you want, but at some point, you have to take responsibility for your own actions.
If you shoulder bump someone, it means you won the argument.
The shoulder bump was just a cap at the end of an armor-piercing verbal smackdown that Sherry gives Jake. Even without it, she won the argument with just her words.
This showroom bike is gassed up.
You really have a bad tendency to send things in a video game just because they don't line up with our reality. So what if the bike is gassed up? Maybe it was being used before it was brought to this small showroom.
Jake waits a full 5 seconds for the tank to aim and fire before gunning it.
Yes, thank you for pointing out what happened on the screen for like the 50th time. But there was a more strategic reason for specifically allowing the tank to fire first. It was because tanks don't normally shoot like machine guns. My man, that was a groan, and yet you wrote in the subtitles, sigh. You might want to take English courses. Helpful hint. And yet again, so much for being specific on why you're giving this sequence a sin.
I think it goes without saying that this entire chase sequence deserves 5 more sins.
I don't think so. Like the last sin, it really serves a purpose to be very clear on what you think is wrong with the scene or sequence. You're just giving this extra sins without being clear as to why. I think it's fair to take those 5 sins and redirect them.
And there's another semi-truck that nearly kills the protagonists.
Oh my god, so what?
I think it goes without saying this entire chase sequence deserves 5 more sins. Again.
Dartigan repeats a sin to pad his sin counter cliche. But for this one, I'm doubling it since Dartigan is trying to justify the previous sin of being purposely vague about details.
One-hit kill a chainsaw enemy? Check.
This isn't a sin, Dartigan. It's Capcom simply bringing back something that would be familiar to fans of previous games.
These two already had one unkillable enemy chasing them. Did they really need a second one?
Why not? For all of your childish complaints about the motorcycle chase sequence, here's the game doing something that arguably works better along the lines of survival horror, and you're complaining about that too?
Then there is no pleasing you.
Good thing that crashed, burning helicopter sitting in the water still has its engine running.
So you're sinning the game for giving you a way to kill an unkillable enemy by conventional means. If I were you, I wouldn't complain about that. Good thing I'm not you.
I'm tempted to repeat all the sins I gave this cutscene the first go around.
Well, lucky for you, I won't give you those sins double since you give this scene for whatever reason only 1.
These two have been fighting way bigger groups of Javo this entire game, but only while fighting them during a cutscene do they lose.
I mean, one reason they lose here is because they are disarmed. That would contribute to being overpowered easier, along with whatever else the writer decided. Also, pronouncing
Javo
as
Javo. Why did Ada have these two captured again? She did research on them for 6 months the first time. What could she possibly learn in just a few hours?
referring to Carla as Ada, so Dartigan feigns ignorance. And she could find further use for Jake and Sherry. Notice how in the 6 months that she held the two captive, Carla was only able to produce 3 samples of the enhanced C virus? Perhaps she needs more of Jake's blood to make more.
Hey, there's our gear.
And conveniently right outside your holding cell.
Yeah, and? We don't know how much time has passed before Jake and Sherry regained consciousness. Maybe their weapons were only recently placed there and were planned to be taken elsewhere.
Is you? That's right.
Everything Jake has had to say about his father indicated that he hated him and blamed him for everything. So why is he suddenly so pissed off after letting Chris kill him?
It's really no surprise you don't understand Jake's reason. You are a person who suggested a little girl operate a boat to escape off of an island. But let me break this down and enlighten you a bit. The reason Jake is pissed is because although you're right that Jake blamed Wesker for everything, and that he doesn't hold a high opinion of him, Jake still wanted his father to answer to him for what he and his mother have had to go through in their lives. I wouldn't go so far as to call Wesker a deadbeat, since I don't think he knew that Jake's mother was even pregnant, as this document suggests, but regardless, Chris has taken away that chance of Jake ever confronting his father. Of course, Chris had a good reason, but the fact remains Jake will never find closure in that sense. That's why he's pissed. This scene is also great because we see Jake having grown as a person.
Jake, please stop.
Put a bullet in your head.
Put your gun down.
Drop your
Don't
weapon.
do this!
Considering that Pierce has his gun aimed right at Jake's head, I'm pretty certain firing your gun into the wall next to Chris's head would end up getting Jake shot.
Unlikely, as Piers knows that Jake is important to combating the C virus. So despite you being certain, I'm actually certain that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, as usual.
Hey! You got a job to finish.
You do? What? You already handed the data on Jake's blood to Leon. Your only concern right now should be escaping.
Sherry handed the data, genius. And the said data is useless without the blood, which flows in Jake, who needs to be alive for the data to be of real use.
You know, after Resident Evil 5 ended with a boss fight over a lava pit, I thought this game would have learned its lesson. But as you can see...
First off, sinning Resident Evil 5's epic final boss battle. And second, that game wasn't the only one to have a boss fight over or close to a molten vat. Look at the final boss fight against Mr. X in Resident Evil 2.
Also, why the hell is there a lava pit in an undersea research lab? Can't imagine much viral research requires lava.
Now, brace yourself for this one, Darty. The reason there's a lava pit is because the facility was built around an underwater volcano. Now, I know you can't imagine much. That's not surprising, really, as I've debunked almost this entire video. But I did find this entry online, which I suggest you take with a grain of salt. Unlike you, I know some others can see this information and come up with an understanding.
Losing just one of your weapons in a cutscene means you've lost all of your weapons.
Thank you for pointing out a common video game trope. This isn't a sin though, and it leads to an incredibly over-the-top but satisfying sequence of awesomeness.
After shooting this guy and running a mining drill through him previously, who would have guessed that Jake's Jeet Kune Do would be effective at stopping it?
Jake's punch didn't stop it, Magoo Jr. It just rightfully knocked Ustanak into the lava, which still doesn't kill it.
How the hell did Neo Umbrella manage to build a miles-long undersea freight tunnel off the coast of China? Hell, how did they afford that?
The game itself actually lampshades your second question.
Who the hell has the funding to build something like this?
It's got Neo Umbrella written all over it.
As for how, with time, a massive amount of money and resources, and the manpower to do it, all which is within the capabilities of the family.
Magnum Ex Machina, because there is no explanation any fanboy can give me that will explain why a Magnum was just lying around on a freight platform.
Of course there's an explanation, and it doesn't take a fanboy to easily explain it. You sticking your fingers in your ears, closing your eyes, and singing la 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 doesn't dismiss the reason the game gives. Grow the fuck up and start acting like an adult.
This plane also has no company logos on its sides.
Dartigan repeats a sin to pad his.
Even first-class seats don't have that much legroom.
Bruh, Sherry's a government agent, and she's not riding a commercial plane for just ordinary passengers. The stupid no logo sin from before should have tipped you off.
How did Jake know Sherry was on the plane flying over his head? He's nowhere near an airport and would have had to have been driving well ahead of the plane for it to pass over him like that.
Maybe they were communicating prior to Sherry's plane taking off?
That's the same exact animation they used for fake Ada Wong emerging from a cocoon. Same model too.
Dartigan points out what's happening on the screen, cliché.
Also, why would Ada have to be naked to use a deep-sea diving suit?
For this sin, I care only about the end result, and in this case, what's on the screen. Shove your questions into the same place you pull your sins from.
This may be the dumbest sci-fi phone I've ever seen. When it's not in use, it's a triangle that's not going to be comfortable in your pocket. When you use it, it's awkward to hold square with no user interface.
Welcome to Resident Evil, where the technology here is far more advanced than what we see in 2022.
Curious?
Not in the slightest.
Simmons entices an uninterested Ada with nothing more than a picture of a submarine. No explanation whatsoever. He might as well have just said, "Hey, check out my cool sub."
Dartigan, yet again for whatever reason, feigns ignorance. You know that isn't Simmons, fam. Stop trying to gas us up. And Ada gives a very simple explanation as to why she infiltrated the submarine.
I knew you couldn't resist.
After the flashback, Ada phones Simmons and he immediately knows that she is on his submarine.
Okay, this sin is even more annoying, and it's really why you can't be taken seriously at all, even when you legit do point out actual mistakes with the game. You started talking right after Carla's dialogue, because Ada's dialogue would have derailed your line of no explanation whatsoever from the last sin.
I knew you couldn't resist.
I'm just here to find out what you're up to.
Then by all means, proceed. So you know, level 4 requires a handprint for access. I've made sure you'll be recognized.
You've got my prints on file. You're not playing around, are you?
Oh, I've got much more than your prints, Miss Wong. You'll see. Good luck.
And on top of that, you're still feigning ignorance by calling Carla Simmons when you know damn well that isn't true. These blatant deliberate edits you make to make yourself look correct in trying to criticize this game are worth more.
Authorization recognized. Access granted.
Wonder what else he has on file besides my prints.
I'm wondering how that thing scanned your prints while you were wearing gloves.
I'll just repeat this line. Welcome to Resident Evil, where the technology here is far more advanced than what we see in 2022.
Ms. Wong. 6 months ago, you performed experiments on humans in Edonia. You were following Simmons' orders, but it was your choice to do so. How do you plan to atone for your crimes?
Someone programmed this computer to ask existential questions to Ada to prove her identity in the case she needed to use the torpedo tube to escape a sinking submarine. Even though there's no way they could have known the sub would end up sinking or that Ada would have to use the torpedo tube to escape.
Carla did all of this. You're not grasping the idea, and it will make sins like these irrelevant. But it's better to con and lie to your audience, which is a huge part of your MO, I get it.
I get the feeling that Ada's campaign was an afterthought during development, since most of her scenes are just repeats of the other campaigns from her perspective. Hell, she doesn't get her own partner.
Dartigan just once again answers himself.
I get the feeling that Ada's campaign was an afterthought during development, since most of her scenes are just repeats of the other campaigns from her perspective.
Well, no f***ing shit!
Ada's campaign is interwoven into the other 3 campaigns and gives us some behind-the-scenes look at how things went down during the other 3 campaigns. And although it didn't immediately happen after release, Ada does get a partner when you play the game online. Even with that though, for me, it didn't bother me at all that she has no partner. She normally works alone anyway.
Seriously, what the hell does this virus even do? How does it create a clone of Ada on top of creating both zombies and mutants of those it infects?
Oh, but what happened to the PhD in virology that you had from before during Jake's section? The second question you present is a head scratcher for sure, but you swore you knew how Jake's antibodies work, yet you're completely dumbfounded by this.
I just want to point out that a biological chainsaw is impossible since a chainsaw requires 2 separate pieces, the chain and the engine, that move independent from each other.
You know what's also impossible? A virus that turns a human being into a flesh-eating zombie.
Yeah, no to all of what you just did.
Not really beyond Ada's capabilities based on what we've seen her do before.
It's like a Raccoon City reunion.
Except that Chris wasn't in Raccoon City when you were there.
I see what you're trying to say, believe me. But Chris likely resided in Raccoon City after he joined STARS, so Ada's comment does make sense.
Briefcase Ex Machina. Literally everything pertaining to the fake Ada Wong is inside this suitcase.
The game, going ahead and explaining something to you, is not a Deus Ex Machina.
You know what will be left of this world?
Nothing! Hell will rise, and chaos will reign!
The C-Virus can also make you extra handy when it comes to dialogue, or at least that's my theory to explain, well, pretty much all the dialogue in every Resident Evil game.
So, Dartigan sends the dialogue in every Resident Evil game since the series' inception in 1996. All because of Carla's hammy delivery of this line in this scene in the 6th game. Trust me, I have no idea what radioactive shit was slipped into this guy's bong before he smoked it before writing this line either.
Fake Ada chooses to fight the real Ada in a room full of liquid nitrogen, the only thing that can kill her at this point.
Oh my god, so what? Why are you sending the game for putting us somewhere where we the player can kill the boss? You want a game where the boss can't die no matter what? Try Clock Tower.
So cute.
Oh, just fuck already.
If this interview with one of the writers of Resident Evil Damnation is anything to go by, then they already did by the events of this game. And no excuses, you made your video in 2015 and Resident Evil Damnation came out in 2012, the same year Resident Evil 6 did.
Ada is apparently in the know about how Resident Evil games end since she leaves this rocket launcher out for Leon without any other reason to believe he'll need it.
My dude, yes, she believes Leon will need this rocket launcher, and it's not for this bullshit. For fuck's sake, Ada herself helped to fight against Simmons when he mutated into a bioorganic adult chomper.
Are you going to keep your promise?
Fair is fair, kid.
I knew he'd end up eating that apple and looking like an asshole.
That wasn't the same apple from the start. Hey everyone, Omega here. We finally made it to the end of this video. I hope you guys were more than plenty entertained with this installment. Sorry again for the long wait. Now as usual, and this will be the norm with every one of these videos that I make, I'm sure you guys are curious to know what video will be next. Well, this may or may not surprise you, but the next video was decided a while back, there's one particular video in this series that has seen a huge amount of attention, and it deserves to be in way better quality. Remember when I said quite a while back that there were 2 videos that need a serious facelift? My Devil May Cry 4 video was one, and this is the other. If I'm going to move forward, hint hint, then I have to revisit the past. Here's what's coming next on Everything Wrong with Dartigan.